Hello, welcome. Today is Wednesday, April 21st. Was it 4/21/21? Welcome to Ntiva Live, Apple for Business live stream. With me today is Chad Cleese, our cyber resilience lead. I'm Ben Greiner, Director of Apple Technology. And today, first of all, apologies for the last minute move. We normally do this every Tuesday at noon. And because that conflicted with Apple's presentation, and we knew we couldn't compete against Apple, we thought it best to move it. And rather than do it right after, because that's kind of a long session and you never know when Apple's going to end, we decided to do it the next day. So here we are. And what we're going to do today is just walk through what we heard from Apple yesterday, talk about what we heard, what we saw. Of course, try to apply that to business situations, our clients, and a lot of this will bleed over into the personal world as well. So Chad, did you watch the event?
I did, yeah. No, okay. Not all of it. I was in between things, but yeah, I did. Yeah. One of the things I'm most excited about, one of the things that stayed with me after is VESA mounts, or Visa. Everybody says it differently. The VESA, standard mounting size and standard for devices. Apple's always been tricky to work with those things, and having to buy, as you know, Ben, lots of adapters and things to kind of work around that. And so that standard out of the box is, I know it's a small thing, but I was really excited about it.
And so by that you mean standard that you can take this mount off and attach it to something else on an arm, sure, or a, what do they call a swing arm, or your desk where you can move it around.
Display mount. Yeah. And that was a lot of value that never existed before. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, what's also amazing is this thing only weighs, I think it's less than 20 pounds. And I assume if you take the base off, I don't know if that's 10 pounds without the base or 10 pounds with the base. I haven't looked into it enough to know, but what did I say, 10 or 20 pounds? Yeah.
Yeah, for that reason.
It's essentially a large iPad. Yeah, right at this point.
Exactly. Yeah.
The one difference is I noticed they had to move the power brick to an actual brick. So, the days of just having a single cable, which is nice, is now a single cable to a brick that's going to live under your desk. Although they also moved the Ethernet down to the brick, which I thought was nice, just to give a clean look. But let's start, as I like to do, from the beginning, go all the way down, quickly touch on everything they addressed, starting with clearly tie into Earth Day, carbon neutral, a lot of talk about that. I cannot verify that information. I can only trust that what Apple's telling me is true, that they have an initiative to get carbon neutral. And they clearly, made the Apple campus, Apple Park, a central part of the presentation, as they sort of have over the past several introductions. This one I thought was the tightest of all of them, because they jammed it all into 1 hour, as opposed to it's going to be between 1 and 2 hours. We don't know when, and there's just a lot of marketing speak. This one was pretty much rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. The campus looks great. The first thing they mentioned was Apple Card and Apple Card family. Do you use Apple Card, Chad?
I do.
Yeah. So do I. Yeah. Do you think, I haven't once again looked into it for the family. I think it makes sense for me and my wife. Now that my kids are in college, maybe not so much. I think making it easier for the family is great. I'm not sure how you divvy up the Apple Cash. Did you notice that?
I did, and I thought about that, because that's probably the one thing that I do use the most with other members, right? And so having a single kind of gatekeeper for that would, we'll see how that shakes out. Put it that way.
I think it's a really good idea. It's Apple is always ahead of the curve, and
they usually are. Yeah.
If you haven't, have you looked at your Apple Card statements? They're so much nicer than any other credit card statement I've ever looked at.
That's right there. It's so friendly. It's so well thought out.
And if you don't look at your credit card statements, you really should. That's a public service announcement from me.
And they make it easier because it's right there, and you don't have to go to a special place and log in or whatever. It's very integrated natively into iOS, and I think that's probably a huge, sell for me, because it's time saving, where I have to go to another, sign in, look up the Schwack and log in, and so it's less friction for sure.
I mean, they make it unbelievably easy to get the card, assuming you have good credit, directly from the phone. You qualify, and it's almost instant that you can start using a virtual card, and then they send you one. So I think having family members involved, I think that's a great idea. I need to learn more about it, and my family is starting to flee the nest, so it's not quite as important to me today as maybe it was a few years ago. But you have young children, Chad, so keep me in the loop about how that works out.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just for children, it's for spouses and partners and
partners,
anyone you want to share within your family, really. They also touched on podcast, which I think everyone's a little nervous about, if Apple's going to try to kill the podcast experience with subscriptions and what that's going to do. The interface looks, like it's an improvement. I didn't write down when that's coming. Do you know, Chad, when?
I don't remember. Okay. I don't remember.
I think a lot of this is coming later in
I just remember the revenue stats were a little steep, 30% the first year. That was pretty steep.
Yeah, 15%, I think, the second years.
That's reasonable. Yeah. I think that's fair. But 30, I don't know. I think they're going to get some pushback on that, because that's asking a lot when someone's trying to start up, especially.
Yeah. And I think some of the stats, and you and I have a podcast, Forget Computers podcast, that we still continue. And obviously, I don't see us getting to a point where we can charge people to listen to our podcast, unless you're a famous person who already has some really big name advertising, and you want to eliminate that and replace it with subscriptions.
Sponsors and stuff are going to have to probably make up the difference, right?
I think it will. They will. What I read is, like, you and I have a podcast. It's free right now for us to post. I think it's going to cost $20 a year for us to continue doing that, which is not a lot of money. You're going to get stats off of it. The current beta, the last time I looked at the beta stats for podcast, it wasn't even working well enough for me to use it. So I haven't looked at it in a while, or maybe our listenership was just so low it just couldn't register anything. But
it depends on the show and the sponsors and the traffic, for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. Charge something just to keep people. My understanding is a lot of people have created podcasts, but the majority of those podcasts have fewer than, I think, 3 episodes.
That's true.
So it's like only a third of those on the platform are actually producing anything consistently.
Having staying power is tough. And hopefully that doesn't decrease. Hopefully this will, not discourage people from. But of course, it does sometimes seem like there's an awful lot of signal to noise ratio, but it's about reducing obstacles, right? We need more voices, more people participating in some kind of conversation about stuff, but we've had good luck with the platform. It's really elegant to use. I don't know that there's a prettier platform out there. There might be. If there is, let us know in the comments, but Apple Podcasts has been really everybody kind of copies it seems like.
Right. Well, am I wrong in thinking Apple was the original or originator of the podcast, from the iPod to the podcast?
Well, that's kind of how I remember it. It was a podcast you made to listen on your iPod.
Yeah.
And that's how I remember it too. I don't know. We should verify that before.
We should. I'm sure if anyone's if we have the information wrong, someone will tell us.
Yeah.
And I do believe the podcasting community, I remember it also really took off, and then kind of had a lull, and I don't know exactly why, but then it really took off again, and it seems to really be thriving. And I guess it's good to see Apple's back in it. We'll see how it plays out with the subscriptions and the the $20 barrier to entry. I'm going to go in the order that they presented things, which is a little different than their website. But iPhone 12, this is not a new iPhone. However, it is a new color. So it's kind of unusual for Apple to introduce in the middle of the year a new color, but that's what they did. Spring, purple, Easter egg looking color. And yeah, it looks cool. I'm not really, my mom would love this. I'm not into purple phones. My mom would love this. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not, no offense if you love this, Chad. I think it's a beautiful looking phone. I have, my experience is they don't quite look like this in person, like some of these colors, like they're a little more muted, at least the other colors that I've seen. So I don't know what this one really looks like. And that's one of the downsides of, you know, the Apple stores being either closed in some states. I know they had to close them in Michigan again. But that's the real value of those stores. You can go into the store if you live near a store, and really check out these products, see them in real lighting, and hold them and see if that's what you expect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks fun. The colors are fun.
Purple's fun. I mean, it reminds me of, you know, that Gogo Bordello song, Start Wearing Purple. That's what I always think of. And anyway, moving on.
Reminds me of Prince, Purple Rain. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so then they got to Find My AirTags. So Find My, for those of you who don't remember, Find My was Find My iPhone, but because it was finding so many things, they dropped the iPhone. It's just Find My, and now they're adding to that these AirTags. And I think they've also opened up the platform to third-party products, so we might see some more things coming to Find My. Like Find My is traditionally the iPhone or your iOS devices, your computer, your friends, if you want to, you know, if your friends allow you to track your friends or family members. And of course, that tracking is done with the iPhone. So if they leave their iPhone at home and go somewhere else, you're not really tracking them. Parents out there who have children who sneak off in the middle of the night.
It's interesting how they're doing this too. It's worth mentioning. They seem to be very intentional about the privacy and security implications of how this works, right? So it's basically, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically relaying those beacons or those signals, those transmissions across iPhones, right? So it's like bouncing them. It's like a distributed, you know, like mesh or canopy type, you know, distributed architecture where all, you know, if I'm walking near you, Ben, with a tag and I request to like where that tag is, it's going to route like, hey, it's going to say hello through your iPhone to the next one, like it kind of, I don't know that that's ever existed before, right? Is that how you understand it?
I must admit, I haven't gone deep into the tech on this one yet, so I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I do know they made a special mention that this is not for tracking people.
Right.
It's for tracking objects. Although I've heard people already talk about tracking their pets with this. So I don't know, pets are they objects?
Yeah,
or are they people?
it's a fine line. You know, it's going to bring up a lot of questions. And that's why I think it's interesting to just start scratching the surface now, because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this in another episode in more detail when the time comes.
And this reminds me, if you've used AirDrop in any recent OS, at least with 14, maybe it came in early 13, iOS 13. Have you noticed when you try to AirDrop to somebody, it gives you a directional arrow, which seems kind of useless. It's like, why do I need a directional arrow to AirDrop this? But now with this platform, you know, it kind of makes sense. If you're trying to find something, it's probably that same technology. It's like, hold your phone, follow the arrow. You know, the video they had was pretty cool with the guy going deep into his couch, like a cave.
Right. You have to imagine that, I mean, you don't have to imagine, you don't have to do anything, but it's easy to imagine that the pandemic inspired a lot of this, right? With notification, tracking and things like that. But this is going to become more part of this kind of standard operating designs, maybe.
Now, I will say, I personally feel that I've made it 50 years without tracking an object, and I can maybe go the rest of my life without tracking an object. So I personally don't feel the need to go out and buy these. Yes, I have on occasion lost things, and when I do, it's always a good reminder to stop losing things. So every you know, maybe 10 years, I lose something that I like, my keys, that sometimes I get back, sometimes I don't. And then I have to remind myself not to do that again. I personally don't see the need for these. But I will say in an office environment, at least back in the old days when we had offices, The bigger your office, the more things get lost, I've noticed, because sometimes people have shared objects and there's no personal responsibility for those objects. So I could see back when we get to the office in a business environment, if there are key things that you need to track that are not devices that we can already track to a certain extent.
It's not new. This has existed in the industrial space for a long time. I remember even, within the last 10 years or, clients and consulting that I did where they had RFID tags, public sector, private sector, they have massive inventories, shipments and, logistical kinds of things that they have to keep sorted. And those same principles, work well and tracking a small or mid-size office. And I think the tech and the tactical stuff has just kind of trickled down now. Cause I remember you could buy tags. They were like square little ones. They were maybe this big and they had a little like keychain on it. You could put it on your keys. You could put it on your gym bag. They've been around. Like there was
tiles.
a Kickstarter, maybe tiles. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. And so, I mean, this isn't a new idea. It's just, built into the hardware. Consumer hardware in particular is new, and it'll be interesting to see what kinds of value people get out of it. Because if you have a lot of, like a bathroom key was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
Like the bathroom keys for shared offices often get lost, and it would be really cool.
I've taken one home once.
Yeah, for sure. We all have, but that's a good one. Hey, Henry, is that in your pocket? That's a little bit where you get privacy and things, but put the key back, Henry. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read, let's see, they're $29 each or four for $4 for $99. That's the current. I'm sure maybe they'll have more pricing if you want to buy more higher quantities. But yeah, it sounds like, as Apple does, they take something, it's not like it's brand new, it exists, and they just refine it and make it better and get the user experience out there to a point where people adopt it. And I'm not saying the other tags solution isn't already a good solution, but if you build it into the Apple ecosystem, I can see people adopting it at a higher rate. The next thing they talked about was Apple TV. Let's see, I think I went too far. Let me go back here.
That's great. The Apple progression TV. Of, I don't know if you have a graphic but I saw a graphic somewhere of the progression of the remote. I should probably find that and share my screen.
I haven't seen that.
It's a great lesson in design thinking, right? A lot of the things that they did initially to look at the original Apple TV remote and look at today's, there's some very subtle differences, but they tried to make it fancy and touch. And now it's back to this I haven't used it, but I'm excited because I can tell by looking at it that it's going to be a huge improvement. And cool.
They kind of went back to the original concept a little more. And I must admit the most recent and the one before that, which was only slightly different, is absolutely terrible. I'm always holding it upside down. It's frustrating.
It is,
in the dark, you're like, what? And then you're clicking things you don't want to click. So this is most people, if you have an Apple TV and you can, I don't know how far back it goes, but you can just buy this remote for your existing Apple TV. I think it's $60. And it's kind of a universal remote. Maybe, I don't know if all the functions will work unless you have the new Apple TV. I have the previous iteration Apple TV. I don't think there's a huge reason for me to upgrade. And I may even put off buying the remote for now. The Apple TV is really just kind of a box you stick anywhere in a shelf behind the TV. You don't see it. It's, to your point, the remote, that's the critical part for interacting with it. You can also use your iPhone or iPad.
I do.
But
I really don't use. I gave up on it.
Yeah.
And plus, you can do a lot of things faster. There's some some nice value to using your phone. But yeah, you're right. I don't know that the TV, other than some of the resolution stuff, it's still 4K.
Yeah.
The previous version was 4K too, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah. They have now a higher frame rate, I guess. HDR. High frame rate HDR, and if you have an iPhone 12, which can shoot in high frame rate HDR, you can have, I guess, some amazing videos on this. If you have a TV that can produce that, some amazing stuff. And taking it back to the business world, once again, when we had offices, I know Apple TVs were growing in popularity for conference rooms because they were really versatile. There's a lot you could do with them, and they're inexpensive for a conference room compared to, what used to cost like $10,000 to put into a conference room.
Like Crestron installation or something versus, just throwing one of those up really quick. I would imagine that wouldn't not continue. I would imagine that would.
Yeah, I think once we get back into the office, again, that will continue. We're starting to see some people go back in limited capacity. But I have an Apple TV at home. I love it. I use it, every evening to watch a little something. And what was interesting is, I don't know if you saw this, they had I'm sorry, I'm missing the Q&A. I need to get this in here. Well, one of the previous questions was, what is Apple Card? Credit card. I should have explained that before I got too deep into it. But did you see the video where they held an iPhone up to the TV? And people get confused. Apple TV is just the box. You still need a TV, right? So you want to make sure your TV is high enough resolution to even need an Apple TV 4K. And I'm not a TV specialist, but I know there are lots of TV variations out there. And basically what you're doing with the Apple TV is offloading a lot of the processing power and resources of the TV into this little box. And that can help things because of these smart TVs, they try to build it all in, but there's limited capacity in those TVs to do some of the renderings. And so Apple's saying, look, no matter what TV you have, as long as it's got the resolution, that's compatible. And most of them will downscale. That's not the problem. It's just don't go buy a 4K Apple TV box if you don't have a 4K Apple TV or a 4K television. But they're saying we can make things faster, smoother, and sharper, and more color accurate. And when they held the iPhone up like a spectrophotometer onto the Apple TV, I was like, oh my God, this is. We used to buy spectrophotometers, like Chris Youngstead will tell you, 10 years ago, for I can't remember. They started out maybe 20 years ago, like $10,000 or $5,000. They eventually got to maybe $1,000. I think the cheapest I ever saw them was maybe $350, and then you needed software to go with it. And it was all about calibrating color. Which was also a challenge back in the day when we had TVs that were constantly fluctuating, especially the old cathode ray tubes, CRTs. My point being, it was amazing to see that, to get more accurate color, not by you sitting in a room adjusting things, but actually doing readings and making it more accurate. I'm really curious to see how that works, how it looks. And I think I would like to see that technology in the iMacs or displays for designers who probably want to do the same thing. They want to see more accurate color on screen. And what better way to do that than with pure data? So anyway, the color is just the amount of tech that goes into accurate color is beyond the scope of my comprehension, but that was pretty cool. So yes, when it comes to Apple TVs, you have two options: a 32 gig at 179 or 64 gig at 199. The only reason I would get the 199 with 64 gigs is if you play a lot of games and you want to download them and keep them. I have a 32 gig Apple TV. I basically just do streaming. I never had an issue with storage.
No, you shouldn't, unless you have family members that, play Apple Arcade, for example, because that's downloading content. So 64 could come in handy for that. But for most people, if you're just watching stuff, the cheaper one's fine.
Yeah. Oh, there's another comment. Definitely Prince. Love the purple iPhone. Yes. Okay, thanks for that. Yeah. Awesome. Yes, there it is. Okay, let's get to the iMac. And the iMac is the latest iteration of which we haven't seen in a while. There was a great image they showed of the old iMac, the big bulbous CRT iMac, and how it just everything just keeps going to the point where it's like this.
It's amazing.
What I wanted to do, because I know we try to keep this short, is I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of this page called Compare Mac Models. And I'm not sure exactly how I got here, but if you Google it or look around, you'll see it. Looks like it's apple.com/mac/compare. And I chose the ones at Apple. They still have some on the list that they don't sell, which is interesting, like this 4K Retina. I guess that is no longer in stock because you can't buy it. So here's the 21-inch iMac, the old one. Here's the new iMac 24-inch M1. And then I also put in here, no, that's not what I want to look at. I want to look at 27-inch 5K Retina. So I just want to kind of compare this because it's really hard when Apple shows you this one model, which is beautiful and fast and faster and all this good stuff, but you really want to put it in the context of what's existing today. And I think, once again, the M1 rollout, Apple's plan, although they haven't said this outright, they've made it pretty clear. The M1 rollout, which is a 2-year process, is starting with their entry-level machines and working their way up. So for those of you on high-end computers, and of course, I would wait. And this stuff's all, this stuff's, it's all relative too. I mean, to be fair, this new iMac should be fantastic for today's needs for most people, especially compared to several years ago. But I think the thing is as technology sees the tools, the processing power that it has, the app developers start building for that. And over time, things that used to feel fast start to feel slow, especially if you sit in front of a faster machine, you really notice it. So what I wanted to show here is not only the price, we got a $10.99, $14.99, $17.99. We've got screen size, 21.5, 24, 27. I assume over the next year, we're going to see a 27-inch M1 Mac of some kind coming from Apple. And that's why if you're a creative professional or video professional or anyone like that, you might want to wait. This is a great 24-inch home personal machine. In fact, I was considering, I've talked about this before, I have a MacBook Pro and an iPad Pro. And I'm almost thinking maybe it's just the pandemic speaking, but I'm thinking my next purchase, instead of the MacBook Pro, would be an iMac. And then I would just use my iPad Pro for travel because I just don't move enough with the MacBook Pro. And when I do move, I tend to take my iPad. Now,
and
when
for me, I mean, a lot of people probably use a laptop with, in clamshell mode or whatever they call it, where you just close it and you have an external larger display right hooked up to it. And I've been using it in that mode much more since like quarantine, for example. So I wouldn't be surprised if the iMacs and the minis, kind of start leading the way a little bit more. That's a good point, Ben.
I mean, you're always going to get more power for the money in a desktop because you pay a premium for the portability. You take a little bit of a power hit, although that's starting to, we're seeing less and less.
But still, but there's still a concern for sure.
So just running through these, the 5K Retina display is still technically a nicer display. And there's lots of other tech specs we can go into. I noticed you can put much more memory into we'll call it the Intel iMac. However, that memory is different. It's not integrated, so it's not really a fair comparison. Storage is different. I love the Magic keyboard with Touch ID. I use Touch ID all the time. I think that's what's been missing from their current lineup. You can go into more detail here, but we're still the verdict is still out about graphics. So if you do any heavy rendering, you have a lot more options on the Intel Mac than you do on the M1 with the integrated chip. I don't yet know how that compares. Obviously more memory, more storage options. Here's the display specs. You can see you've got more pixels. Everything else is pretty much the same, just bigger with more pixels. Here's the weight. So weight 9.88 pounds. Now, does that include the base? Is that right?
I presume so. Yeah, it would be. Well, no, because it's saying like for all of them that it's collective. I presume that's cumulative. So
there's this little 4. Let's see what this 4 is. 4 size and weight vary by. Okay, just says vary. Okay. Well, we'll have to find out. Let's see, everything else.
But it's interesting that the
camera.
middle one is actually lighter than the smaller one. The middle one's like way lighter. See that?
Oh, yeah.
Like that should be in the middle, right? But it's not. So I don't know if that's a mistake or if
no, that's because this is the old model.
Gotcha.
This is the new one. Yeah.
It weighs nothing.
It weighs nothing. Yeah, it's crazy. And then I really liked, especially with how much video conferencing we're doing, they finally put a really nice camera in the iMac. To be fair, I guess it's the same as the one that's in this one, but this one, the lower end is traditionally, these cameras have not been fantastic. And what they showed with the way it processes, it looks like they're really trying to give you your own audio video studio for web conferencing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to more of that from Apple. The speakers is what they talked about. The microphones, all this stuff is an improvement. And they've got Magic Mouse, they've got Magic Keyboard with Touch ID, and they've got trackpads. I personally tried using a trackpad. I don't like it. Some people love it, but that's available. Gigabit Ethernet. So if you want 10 gig Ethernet, you still got to go to the Intel iMac.
Yeah, and that's awesome because for servers or anything production workflow video related, that's fantastic. 10 gig Ethernet.
So the question is, what color? This is kind of like, I don't want to make a decision about color. It's too much for me. Do you go safe silver? Do you have fun with orange or red? I don't know. One of the things I wanted to do, I know we're almost out of time, but let's see if this works. Okay, so the last thing they talked about, which we can run through quickly, is the iPad Pro. So I have a previous generation iPad Pro with this keyboard. I don't know why anyone would ask for a white keyboard unless you're super ultra clean and you never put any lotions on your hand. I don't know how that's going to work. It does look cool. Maybe in California where the sun bleaches everything, it'll be great. But here in Chicago, I think I just see that getting dingy way too quickly. Super powerful, super portable. I don't know if I have a real need to go out and get the new iPad Pro. I don't think I mean, it would just be kind of silly for me. Do you have a preference or a thought on that, Chad?
No, I haven't really made the jump. Like pre-quarantine, when we would go on site, I would bring a Lappy, a MacBook Pro, and I used it on a stand, on a VESA mount, and I still do. But I haven't made the transition to just an iOS device only. I probably use my phone as much or more than my Lappy, but I haven't. Right, the iPad for me is really just a consumer. Like I consume content and like late at night, I'll watch a movie on it. But that's about it. I haven't really made the jump. But you have.
I use it all the time. I use it more and more. I use the Apple products, Pages and Numbers, and also more and more for work. I do use Excel and Word. So the apps continue to get better and better. The platform continues to get better. I am creating more on this device than ever before, as opposed to just taking information in. I want to make a note about the displays. The displays are getting so good. At what point does the human eye not really care?
Well, the gamers do. The gamers will complain about the response time, right? That especially at the price point that we're talking about, right? It should probably be better performer, but for everyday people, I don't know that anybody could really complain. Do you?
I just think at a certain point, are we going to be able to visually see the difference between the additional technology that we keep throwing into this? And maybe there will be additional reasons for that I'm not even aware of down the road. But if you're thinking about an iPad now, now's the time to buy one. They just I would definitely consider this. And I wanted to try something. I don't know. I don't have. I tried to do this with the iPad, but the technology I have set up would not work. It only works with the iPhone. So I'm going to try switching to my iPhone here.
And oh yeah, now we can see your video.
Yeah. Okay. So I got to move my phone around.
There you go.
Okay, here we go. I just put
well done
through AR the new iMac on my desk, and we can turn it around and look at it.
Blue, you picked blue, huh?
I made it too big. Yeah, blue. There it is, 100%. Have you played with this AR stuff?
No, not really. I haven't had time.
So if you want to visualize, this is where I think it's going to be helpful. If you want to visualize the color in your space, you need to get a iPhone or iPad with AR capabilities, which I don't know if I think you have to have the LiDAR, the little LiDAR reader. I think, could be wrong, is what you need, and it reads your space, and then it plops down, the object, which you can really, examine and take a look at.
Cool.
And we could, whoops, I made it too small. There's a little mini. I'm trying to make it, flip it around. Here we go. Flip it around at 100%. It locks in at 100%. Yeah. Nice. And then, you can see the ports here. Yeah. Yeah. The magnetic and core thread, what do they call it? Fabric cord, which is nice. So yeah, I thought that was fun. If you haven't tried that out, give it a try.
That's cool.
And sorry for the technical fumbling there.
No, that's okay. Got to take risks sometimes.
So what was the question again? I didn't really answer that.
We answered the one, and now she has another good one. She says, is the M1 chip proven and viable? Well, it's proven and viable, at least as far as these products go. I think these early release, anytime a company like Apple, especially when they release a new line, this is how they usually do it. They release it to a non-pro audience to get the widest adoption and sell the most too, right? There's some strategy behind that, but also they do want to prove this in the wild before they come up with the pro apps, right? The pro apps usually come later because, well, you were talking about that a little bit before, Ben. There's a lot more demand and it would impact productivity. So that has yet to be seen. That's a really great question because ARM, that architecture, has not been used in Apple products yet. This is the first time. So certainly all the things associated with that architecture, the memory usage, everything is different. So is it viable and proven? I wouldn't say not just yet, but it's well on its way for sure.
Yeah, and I know we've gone over a bit, but I think it's worth focusing here for a minute because that's a great question.
That's a good question. Thank you.
If you go to appleSiliconReady.com, and M1 is Apple Silicon, there's a pretty good list of apps here. And the one I like to look at, a couple of them. First, let's look at Adobe, because Adobe is one that our clients use a lot. And you can see there's a lot of red no's here, meaning these apps, Lightroom, Dreamweaver, Dimensions, even Premiere Pro, Alert, InCopy. Those are not M1 optimized. You have to run them in Rosetta 2. Rosetta 2 is an emulator. It's going to run, but it's not going to be ideal. And in some cases, Adobe Dimensions you can't run at all.
Right.
And so InDesign, Photoshop. So Photoshop, that's the premier product. It makes sense. They put that out first. It is M1 optimized. If you live in Photoshop, M1 could be a fantastic solution for you. Microsoft is another one that a lot of our clients use, including ourselves. And Microsoft's done a great job putting out M1 optimized apps. But surprisingly, Teams, which is what I live in now so much.
That's a deal breaker for some. Yeah.
It's not there yet. So I would have to run in Rosetta 2, the emulator. So you really have to be careful. We've had clients go out in the excitement of the Apple presentations.
And we had one client that went out and bought multiple. They didn't buy just one, they bought multiple. And what did they end up doing, Ben?
M1s. Yeah, they had to take them back because the app that they needed the most was not only did it not run on the M1, it was a terrible experience, and they just couldn't get any work done. So you have to be careful about that. M1 is the future. It's going to be fantastic, but it's early days.
Take a little while. Yeah,
it's early days. I mean, if anyone's been around like Chad and I have long enough to remember the move from PowerPC to Intel, this is the same thing.
Yeah. Some of it, the plus side is, some folks will have some like weird third party or custom app that, someone wrote for them, maybe their HR platform or something some time ago, and maybe it'll just work in Rosetta and they won't even notice.
And they won't notice.
So, but there's no way to verify that until there's a lot of things that are not on this list. For example, this is a great list, but it's, there's going to be things that aren't on it. And so it's in your best interest to wait if you have any real concerns about productivity. This is bleeding edge, right?
Yeah. Here's another one. We've seen issues with Dropbox and Box Drive with M1s.
A lot of folks use those.
Yeah. And you can see Box Drive isn't working at all. There's a private beta right now. Why they couldn't get it to work by now, I don't know. But we have to be careful of that. And then the previous question, which is what's the real difference between the previous iPad Pro and this new release? It's just the tech specs are that much better. I don't think there's anything that I saw, unless I missed something, revolutionary.
Sure, it's a little faster, a little, it looks different. If it's go ahead.
There was one thing, small thing, but they have this technology called center stage.
That's right. That's a good point.
And
that's a good point.
And if for some reason it's only in the iPad, or is it in the new iMac?
I think it's in both.
It seems like it should be in both.
Center stage, yeah.
But I wrote it down on the iPad. Anyway, center stage, I'm sure we could find it on Apple's website, but center stage basically uses the camera to track you as you move around. Obviously, if you move too far, it can't move completely, but it can move within the frame and track you. And if somebody joins you in the frame, it zooms out to include both of you, or zooms in if it's just you. And that's a technology that a little camera called Huddle has had for a while, because we were using that Huddle camera. I think it's called Huddle. And that was pretty cool technology when I first saw it there, and it's great to see Apple is including it. But I would say other than that, and there's got to be a way to, compare.
But performance-wise, from just a practical, everyday person's use, I don't know that it would be dramatically different.
Yeah, here's the same thing, apple.com/iPad/compare, or just search for it here on Apple's website. This is a great tool to kind of give you some perspective. If you have, if I have a previous generation iPad Pro, 11-inch, and that's not quite what I have, but we'll go with that. And then is this the newest one? I think so.
Yeah, it looks like it.
I think so. Yeah, so you can kind of go down the list and see if there's anything that speaks to you that makes it worthwhile with the upgrade. And also take advantage of Apple's trade-in program. We also use Second Life Mac for trade-ins.
Yeah, they're great.
But between Apple,
city, but most major metropolitan areas have something like that, where you can recycle Macs, or they take them and refurbish them, write you a check, and donate them to say schools and community organizations. There's a lot of great ways to make use of that old hardware. So
I might get, for my iPad Pro, probably not $580 unless it's really relatively new, but I could get a few $100s. I might get $300 off out of it.
Yeah, that's a start.
So that's a great thing to do. And I know we went over. Apologize for that, but
thanks for sticking with us.
It was
Your
worth
questions
it.
Are good.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be back here with a special guest, Jason Detburn, who's the CEO and founder of Adigy. And Adigy is a mobile device management solution, MDM solution, focused 100% on the Apple platform. It's one that we use and have for a while. And we're going to talk to him about, what's going on today with Apple and the future of Apple and managing Apple devices.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Me too.
Okay, thanks everyone. We're signing off, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Ciao.